We take an honest look at life in the east of England today and in my own city of Norwich. We don't see the prosperity that governments have often boasted about. What we see is a region where too many people are running faster and faster just to stand still. In Norwich, wages remain below the national average. 1 in 5 workers earns less than the real living wage. 1 in 6 is trapped in secure work. 0 hours, agency or short-term scraps dressed up as jobs. Meanwhile, rents have risen by more than 20% since 2021. A quarter of private renters are handing half or more of their income just to keep a roof over their heads. Miss Hobhouse, that's not prosperity, that's daylight robbery with a tenancy agreement. Public transport is patchy at best in my region. Broadband in rural Norfolk is slower than a tractor on a Sunday morning. And if you live in Suffolk or Norfolk, you'll know what I mean. Child poverty runs at 1 in 3 in Norwich, once you factor in housing costs. 1 in 3. And while we are blessed with extraordinary landscapes, too many of our neighbours live in what I can only describe as nature deserts. No green space within walking distance, no safe place for kids to play. So yes, we face real and urgent challenges in the east of England. Now, the government, my own party's government, tells us not to worry because living standards are going to rise, that we have a plan for growth. But what do we really mean by that? In practice, it means looking overwhelmingly at one number, disposable income. What's left jingling in your pocket at the end of the month? Useful, yes, but adequate, no. Because reducing the richness of life to that of one you can measure is like trying to paint a rainbow with a single grey crayon. You get the outline, but none of the colour, none of the joy, none of the lived reality. The Indian economist and philosopher Amartya Sen warned that dignity cannot be reduced to decimal points. Martha Nussbaum, a US philosopher and ethicist, reminds us the question is not just what we earn, but what we are free to do and to be. And Kate Raworth is right. Paper prosperity that trashes the planet leaves our children bankrupt. And when we're told that living standards are up because the averages look rosy, we should remember what Danny Dorling pointed out. An average can hide a multitude of sins. If Jeff Bezos walks into a Norwich pub, the average wealth in the room shoots through the roof, but not a single person's pint just got cheaper. So let's be blunt. Living standards as currently measured give us a snapshot, but not the whole picture. They can tell us whether the tills are ringing, but not whether the people are thriving. Look at Norwich. A 0 hours care worker has no work-life balance to speak of. They've got work-life whiplash. Mental health referrals in Norfolk are up 40% since 2020. You won't find that in an ONS income chart. The poorest wards in my city have 5 times fewer parks per person than the richest. Try raising kids in a concrete cage in one of the most polluted parts of the city, where unfortunately our own government subsidises electric SUVs. SUVs which churn out through their brakes and tyres more particulate matter than smaller EVs, and then tell me their living standards are on the rise. Or let's look at Norwich South. We have more than 500 sewage pollution incidents last year. My constituents aren't comforted by fines levied on Anglian water. Their lived standard is filthy rivers, dead fish, cancelled swims, massive bill hikes whilst they watch multi-million-pound payouts to shareholders and executives. And that's after our much-vaunted Water Special Measures Act. So when the government cheers that GDP is up, or that the average household is a few pounds better off, I say growth for whom, growth for what, and growth at what cost? I do want to acknowledge that this Labour government has already taken steps to make some difference, to make a difference. The Extended Household Support Fund for councils, soon to be replaced by the Crisis and Resilience Fund, has been a lifeline for many. Our new Best Start hubs, replacing the ACT's Sure Start programme, will help millions, as well as our new universal breakfast clubs and investment in home energy efficiency that will cut bills for years to come. These are brilliant and welcome tangible measures. But we cannot stop there, because too often we give with one hand and take with the other. We extend support but keep the two-child cap that pushes hundreds of thousands of children into poverty. We invest in households but cut disability benefits that provide dignity and security for for millions. We offer relief, but leave the structures that drive poverty and insecurity untouched. As the charity Norfolk Community Law Service told me, we're seeing a growing number of families live in extreme poverty, struggling with benefits that don't provide enough to live on, unable to feed themselves properly or heat their homes. This is not because they're lazy or unprepared to work hard in their lives, but often because they are caught in a poverty trap and unable to break free. And the problem is compounded by neglect of prevention. As Age UK in Norwich also explained, the lack of strategic investment into community preventative services is not only threatening the voluntary sector, it's chipping away at the foundation, the NHS and social care that so many rely on. And here is the challenge. Unless we deal with those deeper structures, we will never truly lift standards in the fullest sense of the word. That means overhauling our tax system. Yes, we need higher taxes on wealth, windfalls, capital gains and inheritance. But we must also face a hard truth. Without structural reform, much of that revenue simply flows back straight into the pockets of large corporates, companies that now absorb vast amounts of public money in contracts, subsidies and outsourcing, while skimming billions in excess pay, dividends and profit. Tax reform must go hand in hand with a clampdown on corporate capture. For I fear many of my colleagues now in government understand that after 45 years of privatisation, deregulation and outsourcing, the levers of state are increasingly connected to very little. Deliver, 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 we're told. But how can you deliver when the accelerator and gear stick are connected to thin air? And let us not forget, when those same interests come under pressure, they rarely look in the mirror. Instead, they reach for the oldest trick in the book. They tell us the problem is not profiteering landlords or privatised monopolies. They tell us the problem is foreigners, that migrants are the reason wages are low, that Europe is the reason services are stretched, that some other is to blame. This scapegoating isn't accidental. It's structural. It protects an economy built on extraction of wealth, of labour, of nature. And it corrodes our democracy, replacing solidarity with suspicion and common purpose with division. Labour, at its best, has always known better. There was a time when our movement understood that redistribution of income, wealth and power was not a footnote to our mission, it was the mission. That we couldn't simply leave the means of production, distribution and exchange in the hands of those who use them to extract rather than to serve. That if our economy was to work for the majority, if standards of living and well-being were to rise, people needed more than just money in their pockets. They needed more say, more power, more ownership over the things that make life bearable and meaningful. That meant public ownership of essential services, from water to energy, from rail to post. It meant universal basic services like healthcare, transport, housing, education, and in our age, access to the internet. It meant building new institutions to strengthen the cohesion of our society, cooperatives, trade unions, community media, local assemblies. It meant giving people not only the means to live, but the means to shape the communities they live in. So here are the specific asks I would like to put to the Minister. Introduce rent caps in high-pressure areas, as seen in Austria and Scotland, so families are not priced out of their communities. Cap food prices on a basket of essential goods, as France and Hungary have done, so no child goes hungry because basics are unaffordable. Abolish the two-child cap on benefits and reverse the recent disability payment cuts, policies that undermine dignity and trap children in poverty. Launch a major programme of public housing construction using public land and build secure council homes for rent. Take our water companies back into public hands, ending the scandal of dividends flowing abroad while sewage pours into our rivers. And mandate universal broadband and affordable transport access as basic services in a modern economy. And two more. Overhaul the tax system. Close the loopholes. Tax wealth properly, but ensure revenues are not siphoned off into dividends and corporate profiteering. Tie corporate subsidies and contracts to strict conditions on pay, investment, and environmental responsibility. And finally, stop mainstreaming racism. By all means, secure the borders, control migration to what we need, but take out the toxicity, open, secure routes, and defend and deepen human rights. Don't water them down for all our sakes. These are not revolutionary demands. They're not even radical demands. They're common sense measures to ensure the economy serves the public and not the other way around. We need a plan for transformation, not tinkering at the edges, not hoping growth alone will deliver fairness by accident. A plan where the demos, the people, have a greater say over how their lives and the life of their community is shaped. Because the alternative is stark. I'm coming to a conclusion. Failure to do this will deliver our country into the hands of the authoritarian right. If we get this wrong, it won't mean some marginal difference in some marginal metric of living standards. It will be the difference between civil coexistence and barbarism, between a society held together by solidarity and one held together by scapegoating and fear. Ms. Hobhouse, people are crying out not just for a few extra pounds in their wage packet, but for security, dignity and hope. That means confronting the extractive model, rediscovering our roots in redistribution and democracy to stop pandering to racism and rebuilding the social compact that once gave Britain both prosperity and purpose. Because people are not simply consumers to be measured or units of labour to be costed. They are the economy, not components of it, not cogs in someone else's machine. They are the economy, and we seem to have forgotten that. And if we forget it, Ms. Hobhouse, we will not only fail to raise so-called living standards, we will fail to rebuild trust, fail to hold our communities together, and fail to protect our democracy from those who would happily divide and rule. We can do better.
Thank you.